One of my most popular videos was Help, I've been put on a performance plan. And I think the reason it's been so popular is this is the reality of corporate life. More and more organizations leverage their human resources department to try and exit executives, and the way they do it legally to try and minimize disputes down the track is they use the performance plan as a measure to exit people from the organization. So there's no doubt that when you do get put onto a performance improvement plan, it's not the best news. It does mean that you've been under scrutiny, your bosses or your peers are not necessarily happy with the results, and they're giving you a kind of a legal way to try and improve. But really, at the end of the day, they're covering their tails. They're really trying to sort of create a pathway for exiting the organisation. In the vast majority of circumstances, and I know that sounds harsh, and I'm sure there'll be some HR people that say that's not quite right, but in my experience, when you are at that point and they actually formally put you on a performance improvement plan, they've almost already made that decision. They're trying to exit you, but they're trying to cover their bases legally. So as an executive, you've really got to be very careful at this point. You have to really figure out, number one, do you want to stay in the organisation? Take on board the feedback you've been given, and you're going to have to eat a little bit of humble pie here if you want to stay at the organisation, because you're going to have to take on board exactly what they've indicated to you is the problem, and you've got to figure out a way to lift that performance to get you off that plan as quickly as possible. Now, the key to this is you've got to have the hard conversations. You've got to really assess what is genuinely the problem, and you've got to assess what would real improvement look like. What would be the hallmarks of an improved level of performance? Because if it is the company's strategy to try and exit you out, you really got to use this as an opportunity to get the goalposts extremely clear. You have to understand what we're trying to aim for in terms of performance improvement. So let's say hypothetically they've said, look, they don't like your communication style, you've upset a lot of people in the organisation, we don't like the way you're communicating to Bill and Betty, we've had some complaints. Okay, so let's get clear on what would improvement look like. The improvement might be you're going to start to get positive feedback from your employees or your peers or your colleagues. You're going to start to see a 360 report start to give much better positive results and say that the communication is much better. You're going to go and do a communication course and learn how to coach people and give feedback in a better way. So you're going to start to see some improvements, and you're going to get those benchmarks as to, well, what does improvement look like? You've got to get this up front, because if you just float around for 3 months and hope for the best, the chances are they'll come back to you and they say they haven't seen enough of an improvement. And you'll find that the goalposts continue to shift because the fundamentals are they actually want you out of the business. So if you want to take the pathway of fighting to stay and you want to keep in the job and you want to improve, you've got to take it on board honestly. You've got to really get clear on what would improvement look like, and you've got to really act a little bit like a politician for the next months or however long you're on this plan for, because you've got to try to build back rapport, trust, support across the peer network that you're operating with. It is not easy to get off a performance improvement plan. It is not impossible, however, and I think if you give it your very best shot, what's the downside? I mean, you may still be exited at the end of the day, but you've given it your best shot and you've tried to turn it around. And I think you can turn it around. So I genuinely feel that even if the company was intending to get you out, you can turn these things around if you do put your best foot forward and you don't take umbrage to the feedback. You don't think, well, Betty's got it out for me. If you have those kind of negative connotations, you are going to fail with trying to turn a performance improvement plan around. Conversely, you might read the tea leaves. You might think, well, they've been out for me for a long time. It's been a really challenging 12 months. I hate working here. I hate coming to work. It's giving me stress. It's giving me anxiety. In that case, if they're going to put you on a performance plan and put you through a really difficult period of time where they're going to try and trick you into thinking you've got a chance, if you're in that scenario, I'd actually advise you to sort of say what you've got to say to get, through the next sort of period, but I'd be starting to look for other work. And I think even if you are giving it your best foot forward, I think you've got to be pragmatic. You've got to be sensible. It's a good time to make sure your resume is up to date. It's been circulated with all the search firms. You've got an eye on other opportunities so that if this whole process does not work out in your favour, you have plan B lined up. So effectively, a lot of companies use this as a heads up. We are going to exit you from the company, but we're going to give you a little bit of time to work things out. Believe it or not, this is how a lot of companies operate. So, I don't mean to sort of be a downer, Debbie Downer on performance improvement plans, but most times they are quite negative. There's a lot of negative connotations around them, and the company is really just trying to cover its bases legally. Be prepared either way. You can take the sort of the full throttle approach of trying to really put the best foot forward, be positive, but at the same time, I'd still be recommending you keep your plan B in place. And obviously, if you have been under any stress or duress through this time, and you actually are not enjoying that environment, this is the clue now to actually formally start the process to get out of that organisation. Look for new employment. You might have to go along with things for a little period of time to make it as easy as possible and not lose that income. But you do want to try and work through that as quickly as you can to find new employment. So they're my thoughts on performance improvement plans. What are your thoughts? I'd love to see your views in the comments.